Now, I don't know if I should be making this video, but heck it, you only live once, so you might as well live it while you can and cover the news no one else wants to. That's why they call us the most trustless name in news. So are you ready to dive down the dark and deep rabbit hole? Well, turn off those lights, because it's time for Chico Crypto.
Let's rock.
Everyone should know cryptocurrencies, and especially DeFi, is a threat to the establishment. For example, DAI the stablecoin. It's only censorship-resistant stable with a high float and market cap. There's no doubt it threatens the US dollar, especially when it was in its early form, only backed by Ethereum. But as time has passed, DAI has been backing itself with dollar-backed stablecoins like USDC, which we know is not censorship resistant whatsoever. The powers that be can blacklist balances and accounts as they see fit. For example, Tornado Cash addresses all were blacklisted. Thus, RAI was created, which was the original vision of single collateral DAI backed by Ethereum. Just like DAI, RAI could once again become a big threat to the establishment and the US dollar. But it has suffered from gaining popularity, thus a high float and market cap. So what do you think happened to the co-founder of both DAI and RAI? Well, Nikolai Mushegian died in Puerto Rico last Friday, and as we can see from the article, it says, Mushegian died due to drowning after being dragged by sea currents on the Condado Beach in San Juan, the local newspaper El Nuevo Dia reported. Mushegian had no vital signs by the time his body was rescued. Now, just days before his death, Nikolai released the light paper for something he codenamed Rico. Checking out the paper, we can see it's a spiritual successor to both DAI and RAI. And as we can see from his Rico announcement tweet, he said this when asked, "How are you planning on being as anon and decentralized with no legal entity or any centralized dependencies like for front-end or for hosting code, like in the case of Tornado?" He responded, "Front-end isn't an issue. It can be minimalist enough to fit on-chain even, and anyone with a node can make direct RPC calls anyway. But it's a moot point. This thing will have a legal structure." He was looking to have it be fully censorship resistant with a bulletproof legal structure, something the establishment oh so feared. But then there's this, and this is where things start to turn very, very dark. In the Rico Matrix chat, someone replied that Rico was very beautiful and exciting. Nikolai replied, "I'm trying, but it's hard to focus because I'm so paranoid. Everyone is trying to kill me." Yes, my friends, Nikolai was fearing for his life, and this isn't the only instance of him exclaiming that he could be destined to die. Just over a month ago, in September of this year, the 4th to be exact, Nikolai tweeted this: "A bet that there is no future where negative-sum banker globe slave agenda doesn't end in extinction. Wish me luck." He then says, 3 possible futures for me. Number 1, suicided by CIA. Number 2, CIA brain damage slave asset. Number 3, worst nightmare of people who fucked with me up until now. I am sure these are the only options. Nikolai died on October 29th, and just a day before his death, he tweeted this: "CIA, Mossad, and Peatster Elite are running some kind of sex trafficking, entrapment, blackmail ring out of Puerto Rico and Caribbean islands. They're going to frame me with a laptop planted by my ex-girlfriend, who was a spy. They will torture me to death." So Nikolai was threatening to turn the knob on decentralized finance once again, and it seems he had information about Puerto Rico and the Caribbeans being a key component of some dark and nefarious things going on. Yeah, Puerto Rico is key, and one certain person is connected heavily to Puerto Rico and also tied to Nikolai. Have you ever heard of Brock Pierce? Well, Brock Pierce is the original founder of Tether, yeah, that stablecoin. But Brock has been for years attempting to turn Puerto Rico into a crypto utopia. In 2018, the New York Times covered just this, with a picture of Brock Pierce on the cover, standing conveniently in a children's museum. The article says this: they call what they are building Portopia, but then someone told them, apparently in all seriousness, that it translates to Eternal Boy Playground in Latin. So they are changing the name. They will call it Soul. They wanted to call this crypto utopia Portopia, which translates to Eternal Boy Playground. I wonder why Brock and his friends wanted to originally call it that. Well, in the year 2000, civil suits were brought against Brock and his friends. A group of young boys at the time, minors, alleged this. In section 20 it says, during the course of plaintiff's employment by defendants, DEN, Digital Entertainment Network, Mark Collins Rector and Brock Pierce, defendants Collins, Chad Shackley, and Pierce on repeated occasions sexually and physically assaulted plaintiffs, forced plaintiffs through coercion or subversion to consume controlled substances and or prescription drugs, threatened plaintiffs with physical injury and economic harm, all with the intent to humiliate plaintiffs and subjugate them to their will. And then once again in section 21 it says, controlled substances obtained through a Dr. Mobasar were used to intoxicate, subjugate, and or incapacitate plaintiffs for the purpose of further allowing defendants and each of them to physically and mentally abuse the plaintiffs. Now, from this article, Bryan Singer, Sex Abuse Case, a troubling history behind the accusations, we can get a deeper picture of what was going on. And yep, it involves Hollywood's elite. The article states, the wild parties were hardly a secret. During the mid to late 1990s, as the internet bubble was inflating, a wide swath of gay Hollywood flocked to the 12,616 square foot Encino mansion that 40-something Mark Collins Rector shared with Chad Shackley and Brock Pierce. They then dive into the trio's company, Digital Entertainment Network, DEN, and then say, also among the investors reportedly were A-list director Bryan Singer, veteran television executive Garth Aincher, former Disney executive David Newman, who worked for Collins Rector's company, and producer Gary Goddard. Now, 15 years later, a man named Michael Egan III has filed civil suits accusing those four of misconduct that could supply material for an especially lurid episode of Law & Order SVU. Specifically, Egan alleges that Singer, Aincher, Newman, and Goddard drugged him and forced him into sex at parties in Encino and Hawaii, starting when Egan was only 15. Egan was one of several young men to make such allegations in lawsuits filed against Collins Rector, Shackley, and Pierce 14 years ago. Court cases in which the plaintiffs won $4.5 million from Collins Rector and Shackley by default because the trio had fled the country. Pierce reached a settlement. Then below it says this, after a New Jersey grand jury indicted Collins Rector in 2000, he fled the country along with Shackley and Pierce. The trio surfaced in May of 2002 in a villa in the South Spanish beach city of Marbella. Police found guns, machetes, and child pornography in their house. The article then says, what seems remarkable in retrospect is that all the charges against Pierce's former partner, Collins Rector, were filed by federal authorities. Despite many allegations regarding activities at the Encino house, officials in LA never pursued criminal charges against Collins Rector or his associates. Egan's mother, Bonnie Mound, alleged during an April 21st news conference that her attempts to report her son's abuse to the FBI had fallen on deaf ears. I wonder why criminal charges were never pursued. Well, old Brock Pierce also has ties to one of the most prolific child sexual abusers of our time, Jeffrey Epstein. In 2010, Jeffrey was hosting a conference on his now infamous pedo island, titled the Mindshift Conference. And besides Jeff speaking, there is also Brock Pierce. So, did Nikolai have any direct ties to Brock? Well, just last year in October, a crypto project, SDG Exchange, got an investment from Advanced Blockchain AG, but they also got investments and are backed by Nikolai Mushegian and Brock Pierce. So there are ties between Nikolai and Brock, but is this the first time a person tied to Brock Pierce has mysteriously died? Nope. This has happened before in 2018 to the heir of the banking giant BNY Mellon. Matthew Mellon died under suspicious circumstances in April of 2018, and he also feared for his life before he passed. Now, Matthew, it seems, met Brock Pierce in 2015 at the first secretive annual Bitcoin meeting named the Satoshi Roundtable, aka Crypto's Bilderberg meetings. Using Wayback Machine, we can see that both Brock and Matthew were attendees. Here's a group photo of the event, which includes both Matt and Brock. And here's another photo showing Matt in a small group listening to Brock speak. Matt and Brock became good friends after this meeting, as Brock Pierce's Noble Bank, the former banking partner of Tether, got close with BNY Mellon. From Brock's LinkedIn, we can see he was the co-founder and advisor of Noble Bank International. Then, from this 2017 blog from Noble, we can see they said, this means that NBI, Noble Bank International, does not lend or rehypothecate client assets. Rather, assets are legally segregated in the name of the client and bankruptcy remote, held at NBI's global custodian, BNY Mellon. Obviously, the custodian partnership was the result of Brock and Matt becoming close. And even 1 month before Matthew's death in March of 2018, Brock and Matt did a duo photo shoot together with photographer Randy Cole. Now let's get into the controversies of Matthew's death. Original reports of his death said that he died while at a drug rehabilitation facility in Mexico. From the early report from Fortune, we can see it says, a representative for his family told the New York Post, page 6, that he died at a drug rehabilitation center in Cancun, Mexico. Specifically, the representative said, billionaire Matthew Mellon, 53, died suddenly in Cancun, Mexico, where he was attending a drug rehabilitation facility. Well, the rehab he was attending said this was not the case. They tweeted he died prior to check-in. Matthew was a drug addict. He must have overdosed, right? Well, just over a week before he died, April 8th, Matt posted on Instagram he was sober and happy. Then, from this Express Digest article on the death, we can see Stacy Ingman, who was with Matthew in Palm Beach before he took his private jet to the Mexico rehab facility, said, Matthew was so committed to sobriety. He was 3 months clean and doing so well. He had extensive travel plans and was expecting to go to Hong Kong after Mexico. My understanding was it was just a checkup. He was literally drinking cups of tea and doing the whole holistic herbal thing. And Matthew's body, did Matt's family ever get a full autopsy and toxicology report to get concrete evidence of what happened? According to this New York Times article written days after his death, J. Reeve Bright, Matthew's stepfather, said the family is awaiting results of an autopsy and toxicology test being conducted by the Mexican government. What did the Mexican government actually do with Matthew's body? Well, they threw it in the incinerator and destroyed evidence. From this page 6 article on Matthew, it says, he was due to check in on Monday to the Clear Sky facility, but that morning was found dead in his hotel room. No autopsy was done before his body was cremated. So did Matthew fear for his safety, his own security, and life before his death? Well, from this page 6 article on Matt, we can see it says visitors to his home had to put special stickers on the cameras of their phones as Matt was terrified of intrusion. He had gun-toting bodyguards and CCTV cameras on every ceiling and corner. His personal assistant says Matthew was paranoid about security and he trusted no one. The article also says, people are whispering about whether he was murdered for his cryptocurrency, one of his close friends said last night. Hundreds of millions of dollars are missing, possibly forever. Matthew always said they were out to get him. Perhaps he was right. Who is they? Could this tie back to what Nikolai was talking about, the CIA and their underground operations? Well, this article, The Dark Enlightenment and More Mellon Madness, gives us a clue that this may be the case. Matt might have had information, and he could have been ready to spill the beans, thus they took him out. The article says, beyond the curious circumstances of his death, there's also the fact that the Mellon was an heir to one of the richest and most powerful families in the history of these United States. Mellons began a long generation-spanning association with the U.S. intelligence community. Numerous family members and in-laws would serve in the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA, during World War II and would maintain close ties to the CIA throughout the Cold War and beyond. But beyond this, the family has a long-time association with even more fringe topics. The Mellons have frequently turned up as key backers of the occult. Well, my friends, this video was made not to accuse anyone of anything, but was made to bring forward the suspicious connections between the deaths of both Nikolai and Matthew Mellon. Both crypto billionaires, both knew Brock Pierce, both were fearful for their lives, and both might have had information on the CIA. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers, I'll see you next time. Maybe.